Hello and welcome to a video for hybrid mix techniques and how to use Slate trigger to replace some drum sounds. I'm working on this summative mix lab here, the Love School song, and the kick and snare don't sound very good. They're pretty wimpy. And your assignment is to replace the snare sound because it doesn't sound very good. You're going to want to put a sample along with it. And you've already used Drumagog in this class, and now we're going to use Slate Trigger, which is a pretty powerful program. I've taken the liberty already doing a basic setup here. I've created a print track and a mix track and a drums folder track, and I put all the drum tracks in that. They're all going to the drum submix, and just like you would do already in this class. And we're going to replace the snare. So the first thing I'm going to do is it works just like Drumagog, where you're going to duplicate the snare track and put Slate Trigger on that. So Option Shift D there is going to duplicate that track. And that now is going to be my trigger track. So I'll call that Snare Trigger. And I'm going to put the trigger plugin on it. You can find it if you've got your Pro Tools sessions sorted by brand. It's under Slate Digital. Nope, not Slate Digital, but Steven Slate. He has to have two names here. And I would go ahead and load the mono stereo one. You could do the mono, that's all right, but mono stereo is going to give you really nice, any of the stereo samples will come out stereo. So I would go ahead and do that. And there it is, and that's what it looks like. Now, we'll come back to it in a second. I want to finish up with the routing before I get any further. Let's take the snare top and the snare trigger and submix them to a snare submix. So I'm going to make a new accent here. This time around, unlike earlier in this class, I'm going to make a stereo accent. And the reason I'm doing stereo is because we're feeding it with the Steven Slate in stereo. So this does, if you're using hardware outboard gear for your snare, watch out. Now you're going to need a stereo compressor because a mono won't work for you. So this might be the time where you're going to have to use a compressor, a plug-in compressor, not an outboard. So here we go. There's my snare, and I'm going to send that to the drum submix. And these two earlier guys here, the snare and the snare trigger, we need to make sure they go to a stereo submix. We'll call that 19 and 20 here. I will rename, right-clicking, 19 and 20 and call it snare. And of course, we're going to take this snare submix and source it to snare. Last step here is hold Command down and solo safe. And now I will be able to hear both the snare top and the snare trigger, both feeding the snare submix off through the drums folder track and onward. Cool. So routing's pretty simple, like other things we've done in the class. Okay, so looking at this, I'm going to mute the snare top for the moment, and I'm going to solo the snare submix. And let's show trigger. And I'm located at a spot in the song where the snare is playing quite a lot. You can see it right there. And I need to load a sample. It's pretty easy. You click the browser button. And yours is going to look a little different here at school. I've got some fancier stuff here. I have the Blackbird expansion pack. The school only has the basic library of all these triggers. And of course, you're not going to have my own custom samples at all. We're working with a snare. So first thing I would recommend is turn on Audition. And this will let you use your arrow keys on the computer to move around and hear the sound. So if I go to triggers, to snares, if I arrow to my right, it opens it up. And I can open up other folders, like let's try black snare, arrow to the right. And now it will automatically play them. So there's the dry and there's reverberant. And you can go through, I didn't really dig that one. We'll try chili. Those are pretty cool. Let's try Dan snare, arrowing to the right. And I like that one. So what these are down here, these are called, I forgot what they're called. You drag the sample down into them. And if we go back to triggering, now if I right-click, I can figure out the name. Right-click, this is how it's called a slot. That's how you delete them. I've loaded this snare sample into one of the slots. And what's cool about Slate Trigger as opposed to Drumagog is you actually have 8 different slots, 8 different faders. You can layer multiple snares at once. I really like that. And I can just press play right now and hear Dan's snare Z1 mic. And I've lost my snare. Where is it? I'm not actually playing in the right spot. Let's try it again. There he is. You can see the transit coming through. And this right here, this detail knob, that is actually your threshold control, and you can change it up or down. And this particular part of the song is worth noting here on this drum fill here. If you do not have the detail set correctly, it will lose some of those lower level transients. So you're definitely going to want to tweak that to make sure all those snare hits come in. And then you're good. And it's that simple, ladies and gentlemen. You're just literally loading a sample. Now, of course, you can load multiple samples, which is really the power of this program, of this plugin. Go back to browser, I could grab maybe the NRG and layer it, maybe this SSDR over here. Now we've got multiple associated samples for the same drum. And maybe let's just try one at a time here. And this is why I had you do stereo, is that it sounds so much more alive. And I'm pretty sure that, I'm guessing that's maybe NRG Studio in Hollywood, and you're getting the room sound. And it sounds delicious now, right? And it's in stereo, and it's that simple. Now, if you were to spend more money with Slate, you can buy expansion packs that actually come with with presets, and that these blue icons here are presets in which there are multiple snare mics layered across, room, overheads, that sort of stuff. Let me show you that. Let's try this Brady head. We'll load that up. If I double click, it loads up all the different snare sounds, and this is pretty cool. We don't have this at school, but you can adjust the levels, and maybe you want more room, or maybe you want more overheads, or whatever. Now, we don't have this at school, so what you're going to have to do is let's just reload exactly what we had a moment ago, where we had, I have to clear all these out, don't I? Darn it. So right-clicking will help me clear these slots. There's probably a faster way to do this. Would refresh clear it all out? I don't know. I'm hoping that'd be awesome. Nope, it doesn't. There's probably an easy way to do it. But all I really need to do here is load up what we had earlier, which was trigger 2 snares, Dan snare, bring the Z1 mic, a little bit of the NRG mic. I'm going to go back to trigger. I'm going to mute these other guys because they're from the other sample. They're totally useless. And I believe I had energy a lot quieter. That sounds good. So we're all good here. I've created the sample I want, the layer of the two things together. Of course, you can play with panning and tuning and all sorts of fun things here, mutes and solos and polarity reverses. Going back over here, you, of course, do want to layer in your original snare most of the time so you can get a little bit of honest, goodness, old-fashioned real snare. So we'll do that now. So here's the original. You may want to process it, EQ it, and gate it, and do all that kind of stuff. Let's mix the snare sample in. And I'm not in any way advocating this sample. This is just the first one I worked with. You may want to try polarity reverse between the sample and the original. And of course, now you have a overall snare level in which the original snare and the snare trigger are together. So that's your basic assignment. I'm going to make a second video on how to create your own sample. But at least this is the goods to get going. All right, I hope this helped. Bye-bye.